Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Brett here, just checking in. I wanted to just say that episode 21 this week is with an absolute stranger. I know it is frowned upon to invite strangers into your home, but I took a risk. I was heavily armed the whole entire time Rob was here. He doesn't know that, but now he does, and he'll probably never come over again. But I was joined tonight in my home studio, with Rob McIntyre, who is somebody that I met on the internet. I know, what a strange world we live in. But Rob came over tonight, and we talked for a good hour and a half. And I feel like we probably could have done 4 hours. So, anyway, hope you all enjoy episode 21 coming up next. Thanks.
And it's worth it.
Listen, if you're trying to be that liaison of lithium, the sorcerer of stealth, the Elon Musk of mobile hunting, then I think you need to check out Stealth Hunting EBikes. Give those thighs a rest, man. I know they're already massive from using your pedal bike to get across that chisel plowed cornfield. And after hunting season started and it's November and you're trying to get back there in time and you're sweating like a pig, man, forget about it. Get on this e-bike. Get yourself a Stealth Hunting bow hunter with all the good accessories, man. They got, they're a smaller company, so they're using the same parts as all the big names in the industry. But they're going to save you thousands of dollars, comparatively from bike to bike. Every bike has a 200 millimeter front brake, and some of them even have the best in the industry calipers. These things are individually built, hand built up here in Michigan. They are beautiful. They are handcrafted. They are sleek. They are elegant. They are not mass produced. Repeat, not mass produced. In the off season, you could cruise downtown on your e-bike, get that thing fully charged up, climb on top of there, put your flip-flops on, maybe some thigh huggers, some jean shorts, and a tank top. Go downtown and get you some ice cream and pick up some hot babes on this Stealth Hunting e-bike. I tell you what. Listen, over here at Angel Road Outdoors, we have partnered with Stealth Hunting EBikes, and I really look forward to putting it to use. I personally tried the pedal bike scenario last year, and it was an absolute disaster. And being from Michigan myself, I thought it was a really great partnership. And Stealth Hunting EBikes and I have been communicating over the last little bit here, and we've decided that we would make a good partnership. I will be using the Stealth Hunter Bow Hunter bike this year. I'm really looking forward to getting my hands on the thing. In fact, I think it's going to ship tomorrow to me, and hopefully get some scouting done on it, go pick up some sheds. Listen, there's a lot of things you can do with this bike, not just hunting related. I mean, sure, if you have a really long driveway, you can go get the mail with it. You could go down to your grandma's house and get some Werther's Originals or something like that. I know that not everybody can afford an e-bike, but I know that if you're in the market for an e-bike and you want to have an absolute top-of-the-line bicycle in your arsenal, tool in your tool belt, Stealth Hunting EBikes is the way to go. Again, comparatively, from the biggest names in the industry, they are pound for pound a tremendous dollar value for you. They're going to save you thousands of dollars. And when you want to make every hunt count, make sure you're using Stealth Hunting EBikes. This episode is brought to you by Beefcakes. Beefcakes is not your traditional gym. If you want to lay down between bench presses, go ahead. You want to pee outside? That's fine. Just be mindful of my neighbors. Do you want to not clean up your dumbbells when you're done with them? Go right ahead. Just be prepared for some ridicule. Do you want a chocolate fountain? Do you want a nacho bar? Perhaps you'd like to sit down on one of our fine leather couches and play NHL 22 on the Xbox. Cool. That's great. If you're tired of a traditional big box gym and you still want to get that pump but maybe have a snack, Beefcakes is the gym for you. Come see us today at Beefcakes. Welcome, everybody, to Angel Road Outdoors, the podcast. This is episode 21. I am Brett, and I am joined today by a complete stranger in my home. There is a complete stranger in my basement. His name is Rob McIntyre. Welcome, Rob.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. So I was kind of telling Rob before we started recording that I have a goal to have people on the podcast that are absolute killers, but aren't the same names that we have or that we see as podcast listeners or viewers all the time, over and over and over and over and over. And not that there's anything wrong with having those people on, and not that they can't add value to everybody's hunting seasons or adventures, but there's a ton of people, and I meet tons of people all the time on social media who are a wealth of knowledge and experience, and I think Rob is one of those guys, and I'm really looking forward to digging in with him. Rob, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Rob McIntyre. I've been hunting since I was a young kid. My dad actually took me when I was 5 years old, and I've been hooked ever since. Started hunting when I was 12 and bow hunting when I was 12. My dad was a big-time gun hunter, but he bow hunted a little bit, and just it evolved for a while. But I kind of put hunting on the back burner. It was kind of a secondary thing because I was big into football through high school and played a year of college ball. And then after I stopped doing that and ended up having an injury, it was just pretty much hunting from there on out. I was like, I'm focused on hunting. That's it.
You know, I cannot figure out how old you are.
I am 32 years old.
All right. Well done, sir. You look like you're 25. So good for you on that. I'm impressed.
And my birthday is November 6th, prime time of the year.
Baby.
I still have yet to kill a deer on my birthday.
Come on.
Every single year I'm like, is this going to be the year? I still can't.
Have you put too much pressure on it, you think?
The thing is, I usually try, like, once it gets towards that first week of November, I, like, save a spot. Then I'm like, all right, I'm going to go sit here on my birthday. I'll have a couple different spots depending on the wind. But I'm like, I'm going to go sit here. And it still doesn't ever work out on my birthday. Sometimes I'll be down in Ohio for my birthday or in Michigan. I just kind of pick and choose where I'm going to go.
Let it be known. I'm calling it right now. 2024, you're shooting a buck on your birthday.
All right. If I do,
I'm putting that out into the universe right now.
I'm calling you. I'll be like, hey,
seriously,
I shot one on my birthday finally.
I'm calling it right now.
Yeah,
you're going to do the same thing. You are going to set a spot aside.
Yep.
And this is the year you're going to make it happen.
All right.
Okay.
I sure hope
That's
so.
what we do here. We make dreams come true at Angel Road Outdoors. I'm going to put that on my business card. So you are, can I assume you are a lifelong Michigander?
Yep. I've born and raised in Michigan.
Nice. So you've seen it all. You've been through it all. You've seen baiting come and go.
Oh yeah.
Have you experienced any EHD?
No, I haven't. I haven't in Ohio, yes, but Michigan, no, I haven't. People are still baiting. I still see bait piles all over the place. I mean, every gas station sells it. And it's like, if you're going to get rid of it, stop selling it.
It's hilarious.
It's like, I'll be scouting. I'll see like all these like deer trails. I'm like, okay, awesome. And then all of a sudden, a little while later, I'm like, oh, there's a camera. Oh, there's a bait pile. So
or a giant mineral block.
Yep. I ran into that this year as a spot that I usually don't see people in. And it's on this oak ridge sticking in a swamp. And I'm walking. I'm like, man, there's a lot of deer sign in here. And all of a sudden, 2 mineral blocks and a camera, and I'm like, and then I look up and there's a giant 2-seater ladder staying about 20 yards away. Yeah. I'm like, okay, I'm getting out of here. I'm gonna get out of this area for now.
That's interesting. Have you always hunted? I don't know where you hunt in Michigan, so and you don't have to elaborate, but I have a spot that I sort of lucked into hunting down in Hillsdale with some friends, and they experienced some EHD before I moved back to Michigan. So pre-2017, are you always a little further north in the state or west? Or
I'm usually in southern, so I live in Howell. So I hunt anywhere from like I go all the way down to Jackson area. I've hunted a piece of public that's out towards Kalamazoo, that's north of Grand Rapids. I mean, sometimes I'm driving almost 2 hours to a spot. But I generally kind of stick around like Washtenaw and Livingston County. Okay. Just because it's kind of closer where I can get to. It's usually like 35 minutes to any spots that I go to. I was lucky enough when I grew up, I lived on 10 acres with my family. And my dad had 2 spots that were built-in tree stands. They were a platform built between 2 trees. That's how I grew up. No matter what the wind, no matter what, you just go sit that spot. It was just a wooden platform with wooden seats built on the trees, and we pretty much looked at each other. But I ended up harvesting my first buck that way with a bow during the youth hunt.
Dude, that's awesome.
So, but that's how I grew up, just sitting the same wooden platform spots, and that's my dad was a gun hunter, and he just hunted the same exact spot, no matter what.
And do you hunt a little bit of private and public today?
I do hunt a little bit of private. I did have a private piece, but ended up falling through. The landowner's wife ended up getting rid of her horse, and then she wanted to make walking trails, and so that was kind of a conflict. But I'm pretty much all public. I do have one little private spot that I hunt. It's not much, but it produces. You got to hunt at the right times because it's so small, but it does produce. But it's mainly public. In Ohio, it's pretty much all public too.
Nice. Yeah. So again, I was just going through messages of people who I've interacted with over the past and trying to look and see who's doing the work and who's killing the deer and who might have some information that they could share or want to share or just interact with that tells a good story, has a good story. And by the looks of it, you're finding places that produce because your Instagram is full of great adventures and trophies and animals.
Thanks. I mean, I put in the work. I mean, I'm always scouting, always just like on my maps, like laying in bed, like looking at different areas. And it's 365 days a year.
Yeah.
I mean, as soon as season ends, I'm getting boots on the ground, trying to find different areas. Like I had a real good spot this past fall that I found last January when I was scouting, and boom, I found good sign, community scrape, and I went in there, hung camera, and I had so many shooters on camera. Like I had them hitting a scrape from, I hung a camera middle of June, and they were hitting that scrape from June on. And I was getting pictures of them in full velvet, and I had ended up changing it to video mode, and I got a bunch of sweet videos of multiple bucks coming and hit the same licking branch at the same time on this community scrape. And it's just, I get boots on the ground. I mean, I always try and find different spots every year, but I always have those pins that I actually will take pictures of the pins so I can go back and reference them, and then I can remember, okay, hey, I have this spot. But then I just want to find new ground every year to go hunt. And I've knocked on a few doors. I've had some bad experience knocking on doors, though. Had a gun pulled on me one time.
Interesting. I've not heard that before.
Yeah, it was this older gentleman, and as soon as I knocked on the door, he ripped the door open and had a gun in his hand. He's like, pretty much get the F off my property. I'm like, okay. Whoa. And I didn't even say anything more. I just backed up, got in my truck and left.
Holy
So I sent out letters last year, and I sent out, I think it was about 10 or 11 letters off the bat and never got a response. I left my email, my phone number, and address on it, so if they wanted to write a letter back, but never heard anything.
Just because I'm curious, handwritten or typed?
I typed it out, and it was I went through it multiple times, and it was a very well-spoken letter. Yeah. I mean, everyone I'm like, hey, what do you think of this? They're like, I would respond to that. I would give you a yes, because of how I wrote it out and everything, but didn't hear anything. But there's a couple properties that I've drove by that I need to find where the landowner lives. Then they pretty much look abandoned. So there's a couple of them. I still want to go knock on doors. But
I got to tell you, man, if I've had a gun pulled on me and one of the things you're looking at looks abandoned, I ain't walking up to it.
Yeah, the thing is, I drove by this house, and there's two vehicles in the driveway. The house is falling apart, and I'm like, do I really want to go knock on that door? And it's like, I don't know if someone's living there or if everything's abandoned there, but when you look at Google Maps and you look at this house, you can see the same truck in the driveway, but the hood's up, the doors are open, but then when you drive by it, it's not. So I don't know. That one's going to be the sketchy one, but there's a couple other farms that I don't see box blinds on, because that's the first thing I look for is there people hunting it? Because you can either see like there's box blinds on it, or like if you drive by it like during season, okay, there's trucks parked in that field. There's trucks parked at that woodlot. Like, so you can kind of tell. But
do you have something that you write with or make notes on your phone as you're doing this? You're like, oh, this particular pin, there were people hunting here, exit off.
Well, so sometimes like I'll put a blue pin of kind of like areas that I want to check out or a piece that I want to get permission on. And if they say no, or there are people on it, I'll wipe that one out.
Right.
So then like I have red pins. Those are where I've been. So I have the way my buddy, he can't stand it because I pin everything. Yeah. He goes on, I'm like, hey dude, like check out this property. And he's like, you have so many pins on here. I was like, he's like, why do you pin so much? I'm like, it's just for reference. Cause then I can like step back, look at it. And I'm like, okay, well, this is how cause sometimes in my notes, like on the pin, I'll take a picture and I'll like kind of put like, okay, the trail's running east and west, or the trail's running north, south. Sure. Okay. This is a community scrape. And I'll just do little notes like that so I can actually go back and look at them and be like, okay, this is how I think the deer are using it.
That's something I've heard recently on other podcasts, is guys talking about historical pins. Yep. Now, everybody talks about historical data, but they actually they'll color code their historical pins. So let's say, and I can't remember if I heard this correctly, but it was maybe they only keep 2 to 3 years of them. Like 2 years ago might be yellow.
Yep.
Last year might be red or whatever. But that's interesting that you're doing that as well. Similarly, but as well.
What I really need to do is actually go through all my pins. But I have absolutely so many pins in the state. I mean, from east to west, from northern Michigan to southern Michigan. And it's like, I really need to go in and weed some of them out because it does get a little bit. I'm like, okay, what is this pin from? And like years ago, I mean, I wasn't so good at putting notes or taking pictures. So I'm like, okay, why is this pin here? But I've started getting better at it, but I definitely need to go through and clear pins out.
One thing that gets me is I'm usually short on time whenever I'm in the woods. I'm usually trying to parlay this visit in with a work trip, and it's like, oh, I'm running out of daylight, or my wife expects me to be home, and I've got 2 hours. And so like I'm just going too quick.
Yeah.
And I need to just slow down, take that picture, make a note in Onyx. So I don't know if you use HuntStand or Onyx or whatever.
I use Onyx most of the time, and then I'll use HuntWise too.
I've never used that one. I'll have to check that out.
I do like it because if like you get the property owners, they'll like sometimes if there's a phone number connected to the property, they'll give you their phone number.
That is pretty nice.
So that's a huge advantage.
Yes.
But the other day I was actually looking at one of the piece of properties, and I called, left a voicemail, and never heard anything back. Well, then I was going to just do a follow-up call 3 weeks later, and then there's no phone number attached to it. So I don't know if HuntWise is changing it or if for some reason the number just got removed off the HuntWise app.
So I have sent out handwritten letters.
Okay.
Similar to what you were talking about. I sent out a bunch of handwritten letters. In fact, that's how I got access to shoot that deer. But the lady told me I almost threw it away because my handwriting was too nice. It looked fake.
No kidding.
She's like, it looked like one of those. You ever get an envelope in the mail and it looks like someone handwrote it, but they didn't? She goes, your handwriting almost looked fake. And she said, I don't know anybody in Michigan. I don't know why I was getting this letter, but something told me to open it. And it was because I had too nice a handwriting.
Oh my God.
Shame on me.
Do you write in all caps?
I do write in all caps. My dad's an architect.
Okay.
And so I learned how to write from him.
Okay. Yeah, I write in all caps too, and I've been told I have actually very, very good handwriting, so especially for a guy.
Sloppy it up there, Rob.
Yeah.
Get a little messy. Smear it a little bit or something.
Yeah.
So that's funny that you typed. I'm always curious on what works and what doesn't. I think the rate of return on letters is low anyway.
Yeah.
And I'm always just curious if typed is better than handwritten.
I think handwritten would be more personable because they're like, okay, they really took the time to like. But like the thing is about writing letters, they don't have to contact you again. Like if you're there in person,
100%.
They have to have a conversation with you. For the most part. I mean, they could pull a gun on you or just tell you to get the F off the property, but that's the way I look at it. But yeah, it is a little intimidating. You don't know what you're going to run into and who's going to open that door.
Do you, when you're looking at people's names, I did not know we were going to go down this much of a rabbit hole on Onyx, but I love it. So when you're looking at farms to go to introduce yourself to people, this is something I do. It's nerdy. I look for old timey names like a Eugene or an Ebenezer or a Martha.
Yeah, I actually do think about that. There's actually a few spots that I've pinned. I'm like, okay, I think it's the old lady's name. Maybe I can go like sweet talk her and help her out because I'm a carpenter. So I've actually hunted some private pieces in the past that I've actually did work in the house or around the property for hunting rights.
100%. That's so awesome.
Good bargaining system because, I mean, yeah, would I pay for lease? Yeah, I have before, but it's like, I'd rather do permission, like really have connection with the landowner.
Yeah.
Like really be like, hey, you need help with anything? Like the old permission piece I had, I mean, I helped him plant his whole garden, like hand plant his garden and like clear out trails and stuff like that and really helped him out. And I was like, if you need help with anything, like just call me. And he'd call me like, hey, I need some help like getting some trees down. I'm like, all right, no problem. I'll be over. And I would go in there in the next day or so and help him out. But stuff falls through. I mean,
I think it means a lot to those. And I'm just speaking from experience. We were always told, leave the neighbors alone.
Yeah.
Down there. What I found out was that wasn't necessarily true. I think the gentleman who has since passed, I think he didn't want to lose us. I think he liked us being there. And I don't think he wanted us to find somewhere better. Because I have since that buck right there, I lost it. It ran across the road and he was in a yard that I was told to not bother that man. And I said, you know what? Screw that. Yeah. I want this deer.
Yeah.
He deserves it. And I introduced, and that guy, I talk to him several times a year now. Oh, no George he lives by himself. He's an old man. I think he just wants somebody to talk to.
Yeah, exactly. Just wants someone to talk to because he probably doesn't have many friends left or anything like that.
His family's all moved away. Yeah. You know, and I think that relationship thing in today's society is so lost.
Yeah, because everyone's on their phones or tablets and it's just via text or via social media. It's like you go out in public, you don't see anyone talking anymore.
Have that conversation.
Have a conversation.
Like, especially with a generation that's what they know. Yeah, it means so much to them.
Yeah, it's just like half the people don't even know about home phones or landlines anymore. Mm-hmm. It's like you used to have to call like your friend's house. Hey, so and so home. Like
whenever I go to a hotel, my youngest daughter will be like, "Do you have one of those old fashioned phones in your room?" I'm like, "Yes." No, she goes, "The one that's connected." Yeah, here you go, sweetie. I'll take a picture.
When you're on the phone with like a friend, and then all of a sudden your sister or mom or dad get on and like, "Hey, I got to make a phone call. Get off the phone."
Well, you mentioned traveling. Mm-hmm. How old were you, or how long ago did you decide that you wanted to venture outside of Michigan?
I mean, ever since I was young, like...
Really?
Yeah, I've always wanted, like... I watched the hunting shows when I was 7, 8 years old. Like, when my dad took me hunting on my 5th birthday, actually, I was hooked from there. Like, I started gutting his deer when I was about 7 years old, 8 years old. I was gutting his deer for him. I thought it was the coolest thing in the world.
That's impressive.
And we'd go to the movie store. I'd rent a hunting VHS. That's what I wanted to watch. All I cared about was hunting and fishing magazines, and I'd see all these big deer and say where they're from and everything. So I've always wanted to just like chase bigger deer, like Iowa, Land of Giants, and Kansas and Illinois. And I've yet to hunt any of those. I've been put in for Iowa points, and me and a buddy have talked about going to Kansas and stuff like that. But I hunted in southern Missouri years ago with a group of buddies. One of them lives down there, and he invited us all down, and we're all from all over the place. I've hunted down there a few times, never had any luck, and then I started dabbling with Ohio.
But did you like it?
I loved it down there. Okay. I absolutely loved it. And then I've dabbled with out west. I've hunted Idaho, I think it was 4 years ago, for mule deer. Absolutely loved it. It's beautiful country out there. Had to run with a mountain lion too, so that was
baby.
Oh, I don't like them too much. And I was out in Colorado elk hunting for the first time. I ended up shooting a bull. 3rd day, couldn't find him.
Oh,
6x6 on public. And 3rd day of my first time ever elk hunting. That was my first day ever hearing bugles in person. It was literally like almost picture perfect, and ended up losing blood and never found him.
Wow, I don't feel like I hear that very often.
Yeah, it was kind of rough. And I mean, I had him at like 10, 11 yards frontal, and there's trees in my way. All I could see was his eyeball and his rack sticking out. And my buddy was behind me calling because he's been elk hunting for years and years and years. And I couldn't shoot because the trees are black. And then he wheeled out. I cow called, and he stopped quartering away about 40, 45 yards. And I was using a single double pin, and the bottom one was set at 45. And I'm like, I'm just going to hold it on. And he ducked a little bit, but I was shooting downhill, and I hit him just a little bit higher than center mass. And actually, he was recording on his phone, and you can actually see my arrow bare to the fletchings. But I never found my arrow and lost him.
Unreal.
Mm-hmm. And I was shooting
so hard to imagine.
I was shooting a small fixed blade, so I think I might have went to the offside shoulder, and there was no exit. And using such a small fixed blade, I'm like, how far did he go? Because I actually shot a buck with the same broadhead I was using, and I double lunged him, 17 yards broadside. That deer ran over 600 yards.
Holy moly.
Yeah.
How long ago was this?
This was 2 years ago.
And when you say small diameter, what are we talking?
It was like an inch. I think it's an inch and a half, inch and a quarter.
And what are you using now?
I'm using the Rec mechanical blades. I started going back. I still have fixed blades in my quiver just because a lot of the stuff I hunt is so thick. 15, 20 yards, I'm shooting max. And I'm going to want that shot because I'm shooting 75 pounds. I'm 29.5 inch draw. So and a little bit heavier arrow. So if I got to shoot that 1/4 and 2 shot, I can squeeze it in there and have all the kinetic energy going into the arrow going in. But the Rec mechanical, I'm so happy with. I shot 3 deer with the same broadhead.
And what did you say the diameter was? The cutting diameter, 2?
On the fixed blade?
No, the mechanical.
The mechanical is just under 2 inches.
Just under 2. But that's a nice big.
Yeah, I mean, I shot a doe with it, the first one, and it just blew my mind. I'm like, all right, shot a buck, and she ran about 45 yards. Shot a buck, he made it 30, and then I ended up shooting my Ohio buck that I shot late season with it. He made about 120, but when he was coming in, I stopped him. I could have waited because he was going on the same trail I had a giant the night before, and I was like, I'm not waiting for him to get to that window. I'm going to shoot him in the window before. And I ended up hitting one little dinky twig, and my arrow it's flying good. And then he was about 24 yards, and I just seen my arrow just hard kick left. Hit him high, far back, and it actually buried. I could see my fletching sticking out of him and a little bit more of my arrow, but he couldn't even use his opposite hind leg. Wow. He was dragging it. Because I was using a heavier arrow, and it just ricocheted off this one limb and just took a hard left. My arrow, when we found him, was sticking out of him on a 45-degree angle. Whoa. Where he was broadside to me. So I got lucky on that part. That's why and that was mechanical, that's also why I use fixed, because the thicker stuff, if you hit one little dinky twig, it's going to kind of keep that same momentum going forward, but I got lucky. I caught that main artery. He made about 120 yards.
Sometimes it's better to be lucky, man.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, I heard him crash and stuff. And I called my buddy that lives in Ohio. And he's like, well, have you gotten down? I'm like, no, I got deer all around me still, because he's the only one that busted. And there was 7 bucks behind him.
Holy shit.
And I had 22 does, I think it was, that night come through, and they filtered behind me. And there was still some feeding behind me.
Dude.
It was the best sit I probably had this past season. And it was 9 degrees without the wind.
You say 9, single digit?
9.
Ooh, baby.
And it was cold, and it was about 10 miles per hour, but I was in the timber, so it wasn't as bad. But when you got in the open field, it was gnarly. I mean, it was cold, but it was high pressure. The sun came out today, and it snowed all the day before, and it was just a beautiful set. I had deer movement. By the time I got set up, I didn't even have an arrow knocked, and here comes a doe walking by already. I mean, there was so many deer, and I got down, and I'm red-green colorblind. So
I have heard so many people say that recently. I didn't know that was so prominent.
It's awful. It's absolutely awful, because like red doesn't pop. Like red can be on the ground, and it's right in front of me.
My dad has that, and I always thought it was just my weird dad.
Yeah.
But there's tons of dudes in hunting that have this.
Yeah, it's a huge thing in males, and like I've used to shoot tournaments and stuff, and like I go to 3D shoots with my buddies, and we always shoot the red stake. Or it's a red fuzzy thing that sticks to the ground. I'm like, all right, I'm not going to be like, where is it? They're like, you're standing like right above it. Because it just doesn't pop for me. So blood trailing that's why I like when they just run and tip over. And I can see them tip over.
Yeah.
And even in the snow, but it was so cold that blood was just going right through the little bit of snow and then just freezing up. So I could almost see where like the blood would like splatter. Mm-hmm. There wasn't much blood. Now I was talking to my buddy on the phone, because he's like, well, why don't you get down, kind of follow it? So I stayed on the phone with him. And I'm like, I think this is Bud. He's like, just FaceTime me. And his wife was like, why? He's like, he's red-green colorblind. He can't see blood that well. So he's on FaceTime, and I like put it on my fingers and kind of smear. He's like, yep, that's blood. And I have to smear the blood. Like even like tracking leaves, like when it's dewy, that really throws me off. I'll be like, okay, is that blood? And I'll touch it. And if it's and I'm like, oh, that's clear. It's dew.
Oh my God.
So I have to like touch and smear it on my fingers when I think it's blood. But then you can see where his legs are dragging. So I'm like falling. I'm like, I heard him crash just like right up here. He's, well, we'll get to that point. I'm heading up. He's about an hour and 10 minutes. I'm like, well, hold on. I picked up my binos, and I can see him laying along the edge of the log. And he's like, I thought he's done. And he's like, is he dead? And I'm like, his head's down. I can see my arrow sticking out of him. He's like, did you bring a bow? I said, no, I left it over there. Because I shot him plenty of time before shooting light was over with. Yeah. He's like, you big dummy. He's like, I'm heading up. Go back. Pull your set down. I'll meet you at your truck. So I ended up pulling the set down. Called a couple of other of my buddies, and got back truck. That was the most anxious sit. I didn't even walk up to him. I was 60 yards from him when I saw him.
The fact that you saw him and then left, I can't even imagine.
I know. And then I'm like texting him like, hey dude, like where you at? Like,
oh God.
First thing he said when he got out of his truck, he's like, you ready to go put your hands on him? I said, yeah. I've been itching. I already got the cart ready.
Chewing your fingernails the whole time.
Yeah, so I had the cart ready, and then because I had a trail cam picture of him too. I had a lot of good bucks on camera, and I sent him a trail. He's like, because I told him like when I first shot him, after I called my girlfriend and everything, I called him. I was like, dude, this could possibly be like 150 inch 8. And I sent him a trail camera, and he's like, dude, that ain't no 150-inch 8. Like, that doesn't look very big. It looks like 120. I'm like, dude, this deer is like super heavy. Trail cam pictures do him no justice. Because when we walked
cams are weird, man.
Because we walked up, I mean, I always hang my cameras up super high, so no one messes them. Yeah. I'll use tie wire too instead of a strap, because that's the first thing you notice is strap.
Yes.
So I'll use tie wire, and I'll hang them like 10 feet off the ground.
Yeah.
10, 12 feet off the ground. But we walk up to him, and he's like, oh yeah, you ain't kidding, that deer has mass. And so he's like, wow, that deer's really heavy. And he's just a super gnarly, heavy mainframe 8. And I kind of knew what deer it was when I saw him through the timber. I'm like, okay, he's got that kicker off his G2. Yeah. I'm like, I know that deer. We got a picture of him, but I haven't seen him all season when I hunted. And this was my 11th trip to Ohio.
Seriously?
Yeah, I did 12 the year before and didn't even tag one. And I had more encounters this year. I missed a real nice one, actually, on my buddy's farm. That was the one time I hunted private. He's like, you know what, why don't you come with me? Because I was hunting the early season down there, and ended up missing one on his farm. He's like, I don't care, dude. Like, you want to shoot it? Shoot it. And it was 55 yards, expecting him to duck, and he didn't duck a flinch. And then the arrow went right underneath him, and then he ducked by the time when the arrow was going underneath him, because he videotaped it on his phone. He ducked, and if you can see it, he went right perfect, right where my arrow was, but he didn't start ducking until my arrow was underneath him.
Yeah, unreal.
But yeah, we walked up to him, and then it was super cold. He helped me. He's like, well, he FaceTimed one of his buddies that lives right by there. He's like, hey, like, you mind? He's like, can we bring this over and cut him up? He's like, yeah, sure. So I got to go cut it up in his barn and stuff. And he started a salamander heater. And then as soon as I caped him out and skull capped him, my buddy's like, all right, I'm putting a tape on him. Because we were all kind of talking about it and stuff. And he ended up coming out at 138 and 2/8.
Wow. That's an incredible 8, dude.
I'm going to have a hard time.
That's an incredible deer.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, there was a couple other deer that I was full draw on that wouldn't have scored that high. I mean, I'm from Michigan. I mean, 115, 120, I think is a good deer. But there was some big ones in Ohio. I mean, I had probably a 170, 175 at 15 yards, 15 minutes after legal shooting. Like, my bow's on the ground. I'm hugging this tree.
Oh, man.
And I stayed up in the tree, I think 45 minutes after shooting light was done, because he came, stood in front of me and browsed at 15 yards, and he's like 26 inches wide, just this giant. And
And you were halfway down the tree?
No, I was still in the tree. I was actually unclipped from my saddle already. So I'm like, and because the thing is, I lowered my bow down, dropped my rope from my bow, grabbed my backpack, put my rope that holds like my quiver and bow in my backpack, put it on, took my tethered rope off, and I was like, that kind of looks like a deer. I picked up my binos. I'm like, oh, you got to be kidding me. And he's like, I was like, I wonder if I can get down before he gets here and at least just be on the ground. Nope. Here he came, stood at 15 yards, fed on some browse, and kept going. And I watched him for a while, and I called my buddy. I'm like, dude, I'm stuck in this tree, and he's going right towards where my truck's parked.
Oh, my God.
So I'm like, I don't know. He's like, is there any way to get to your truck? I said, no. I said, I can do a giant loop. At least I'll be in a different area. If I bump him, if he's in that area, at least I'll be over there, and I won't be where I'm hunting. So I had to do a giant loop to get back to my truck instead of kind of going one way where I can't access. And he went right over where I accessed to, and he didn't smell me. And there was snow on the ground, but yeah, I had to do a giant loop to go way out of my way, the opposite direction of my truck, just to loop back to my truck. And
unbelievable.
Left my platform sticks on the tree and went back and sat the next day. And the thing is, when that buck was walking in, I was looking at the other bucks behind him like, okay, is one of them him?
Oh, the other one. Yeah, the bigger one.
The big one. And I'm like, and there was an 8-pointer that had this gnarly split that I got on camera, never seen in person. And then I'm like, and a lot of them were nice. And I'm like, this one's getting too close. I'm shooting him. So he was the first one in the group. So I threw my binos in, and I'm like, nope, I'm shooting him. I don't even care. Like, but I'm so tickled to death with him.
Oh, hell yes.
It's going to be a hard one to beat. Like, as an 8-pointer, it's going to be super hard, but I'm so thankful. I mean, God was in my corner. I mean, I grinded it out. I mean, I was down there a couple weekends before, slept in my truck. It was cold. Then I ended up saying, because I built a platform for my truck in the back, and I'm just under 6 foot, so sleeping in there, it's kind of scrunched up. And is your truck a full size bed? No, it's a 5.5 foot bed. So if
same with me, and I can't lay in mine.
Yeah, so that platform's for my back seat. So I'm sleeping.
Nice.
So I'm sleeping on an angle and everything, and I'm like, this sucks. But then I just saw a video of some guy, he built a platform my buddy sent to me, and it actually, he lays down his front seat all the way, and the platform goes from the back seat, goes over top of that seat. I'm like, all right. I need
you to send me that video.
Yeah. I'll send it to you because I thought about doing it. So I'm like, so I slept in my truck a few times or a 10. I mean, I grinded it. And,
yeah.
And the thing is that day, like, I canceled my hotel that morning. I was like, there's no point of me hunting here tomorrow. I'm going to hunt tonight, and then I'm heading back to Michigan because it's Sunday. I'd rather get home and relax and everything. And I'm like, and I just had a feeling, and I said my prayer once I got in the stand. I was like, you know what? Today's the day. Today's the day. I'm finally going to fill my tag. It's been a season. I've been grinding. I mean, missing that one early season and another one early season. It's full drawn, and actually my girlfriend was with me too. It was actually her first time kind of hunting, and we snuck there in the morning, and I had him at 14 yards, full draw. It was legal shooting light, but it was so dark in the timber I couldn't see my pins. And a super wide 8-pointer. And she's like, he walked right underneath us at one point. And but then I had another one come in before light.
This is all Ohio.
All Ohio. I had a better season in Ohio than I did Michigan, getting on better deer, and like I had a 10-pointer. I got him on camera. And he came in a half an hour before light, had him at 20 yards with another buck. And then I was full draw another one, an 8-pointer with a kicker, a different 8-pointer with a kicker. Wouldn't stop in my shooting lane. So it was just time after time after time. I was getting a full draw on these deer. And I was like, I talked about it. He's like, it's going to happen, dude. Like, just keep thinking positive and it's going to happen. And that night it happened finally. And I was thankful because the season before, I mean, every weekend in January, I was down there. And it was just like, I grinded until the very last day. And I was like, I didn't fill a tag in Ohio last year. But, I mean, the thing is, I called one of my buddies and told him, and the thing is, the year before, I was just telling him, like, I really want to shoot a buck in the snow with my bow late season. That's my goal. Well, in Michigan, I shot one December 26th on public, a mainframe 9. He was 128. I think 5/8 is what he taped out at, and one of his sides popped off when he hit the ground.
No way.
He had a broadhead buried in his opposite side shoulder, and he had a scar that was like a foot long, and the broadhead was still sticking out of his skin, but everything healed up. And my processor's like, oh yeah, there's scar tissue built up around that broadhead. And so I did it that year, and then this year I did it grinding late season. He's like, well, you said you wanted to shoot one during late season, and now you've killed two during late season when it's absolutely freezing cold. You might as well just quit hunting the rut and everything and just hunt late season.
Let me dig into that, because I am a huge proponent for what you tell yourself in your off time and how that manifests itself into reality. I mean, I'm reading a book upstairs called The Magic in Believing or something like that. Mm. I mean, I firmly believe that you can think things to fruition. Saying what you just said, do you think that that's going to be a philosophy of yours long term in remaining positive at all times, as much as you can, as best as you can humanly do it?
Yeah, I mean, it takes a lot. Sometimes, like, I'll have to call my buddies, and there's one of my buddies, we always call each other and brainstorm, and I've had to pick him up. Like, he shot a buck a couple years ago, and he's like, just nothing's going right. And I'm like, dude, just think positive. It's got to happen. All you got to do is just, and that night, I ended up not going hunting that night that we talked, and all of a sudden my phone's ringing, I see his name. I'm like, you want me to come on my way? And he's like, I shot one. So I ended up driving an hour and a half to go be there for him and help.
That's so awesome.
Go on the track and stuff. And he had to kind of do that to me a few times and just be like, hey, dude, just keep doing what you do. You grind it out. You are one of the few that actually just keep grinding and just keep pushing forward. And I have buddies that are like, how do you do it? Like, you just keep
make your own luck
and keep going.
You got a super positive attitude, and you are making your own luck.
Yep.
And making your own luck could be called lots of things, but it is what it is. You are putting yourself in position with a positive mental attitude for the positive outcomes. It's all within yourself. Like, there's lots of external forces that can happen and can knock you down and can create obstacles that you have to overcome. But if you are mentally tough and you are positive and you have a strong, encouraging circle of friends to keep you in a positive, I think anybody can do anything that you really want to do. I firmly believe that.
The thing is, you just got to keep your mind set right. Like, like sometimes it sucks. Like sometimes I catch myself. I'm like, why am I doing this? Like, why am I still out here? Why am I like chasing a ghost? Like, but you know what? All it takes, all the time, all the grinding, and it takes for that 1 minute and that 1 second of that shot and that harvest. Like, and then you have that whole story of grinding it out all season. Because I mean, I started hunting in the CWD zones. That was early September, and I ended up killing January 20th.
In Ohio, the CWD zones in Ohio?
Yep.
Yeah.
So I hunted almost all September. October, I was down there multiple times. November, December, and finally killed in January. And it was like, I grinded, and I mean, all I had to do was keep staying positive, and I kept bouncing around, and just, I'm like, I finally just figured out. I got in that one spot that I'm like, okay, this is it.
You know, I neglected to do this on the front end, which I told myself I was going to do every time, and I didn't do it today, so shame on me. You've talked a lot about bucks that you've shot, and your Instagram page is full of great adventures and other animals, not just bucks. But where can people follow you on Instagram if they want to see pictures of all these incredible animals?
My Instagram name is RM Outdoors 273. So that's the only thing I have. I don't have Facebook or anything like that.
I don't blame you. I was just using it for Marketplace. To
that's one thing I miss. I miss Marketplace and all the bow hunting pages.
Yeah,
like
there's
archery pages.
There's good archery pages on there, and I did start an Angel Road Outdoors Facebook page because I do think that with the podcast it's helpful. So anyway, I know I don't blame you, man, but I'm telling you, I highly encourage everybody to go follow him. He's got great stuff. He's a great guy. So anyway, I promised myself I would do that on the front end because I feel like at the end of a lot of podcasts, people are moving on.
Yep.
And so we missed that. So now you're in the middle, which is better than the end. So cool. 2 years in Ohio?
I've hunted 3.5 years in Ohio.
3.5 years in Ohio.
Yep.
Okay.
I started when I tagged out in Michigan. I tagged out November, I think it was 4th. And I'm like, all right, well, I think I should go to Ohio. I hunted one area. It was very highly pressured. I ended up running a lot of bird hunters, and what I didn't know that I know now is there's so much pressure there. It gets pounded during gun season. I went down there for a gun season, and there's Amish people driving doing deer drives everywhere, and almost got a shot at actually a real nice one. I actually cut in front of all the drivers, and they pushed a buck to me. I couldn't get a shot, and then he ran across the road on a private, but I kind of did a loop right in front of him.
That's funny.
Then my first full year down there, I ended up killing one. And then last year, didn't kill one, and then this year, ended up grinding it out. And I mean, I've hunted anywhere from southern in the hills where my buddy, and I've learned a lot from a few buddies of mine about hill country and stuff. And shout out to my buddy Austin. He's the one that came and helped me and everything, and he's taught me a lot about hill country. I went down there and we did some deer drives during gun season, and I've just learned so much of it, just like shed hunting and just stuff. And I've turkey hunted down there with him, and the hill country is definitely tough, and it's definitely a whole new experience because we don't have hills up here.
No,
I mean, there's a little bit of slight terrain, but those are hills down there. And I mean, he's taught me a lot about them. And I've hunted anywhere from southern to mid to northern to eastern to western. I mean, I've hunted a lot of different places in Ohio.
Do you have a favorite?
Yeah, kind of where I shot this buck.
You don't have to tell me where. I just
yeah, but
some people love the hills, and some people are like, they just kick my ass. I don't like it.
It's definitely. I would like to learn more. Definitely, I would love to shoot a buck in hill country. I mean, my buddy. I mean, he's like, it's a grind. It's tough because you find those spots, but when you see deer, it's usually the right deer.
Yeah.
Because there's not high deer density. Now, where I'm at, there's a high deer density.
Okay.
There's a lot of different deer, and I really like this area. But where I shot my buck 2 years ago, I really want to go back in there because I went in there last year, and it ended up flooding out, and I couldn't get in there. Me and a buddy went in there, and I tend to not show a lot of people my spots. There's only very few that I really trust, and he's one of them. We went down there.
The world is weird, dude. I don't blame it. I don't blame you at all.
I've had a lot of people cross me, and I've had people, I show them a spot, and then they litter it with cameras, and they claim to found it, and it just drives me nuts. Like, I grind, I find my spots. Like, if I show you a spot, that's sacred. And
dude, I just put out my video from when I shot that buck in Illinois, and I edited out the sound of a clue to where I was hunting. because I don't want anybody back there.
Yep.
And now that makes me sound, when I say it out loud, I sound like a giant piece of shit.
Yeah, but the thing is, it's like you're the one who found it. You're the one who grinded it. You're the one who got permission
I sent the letter.
access it. Yep. Yeah, exactly. So you did the work. Someone else shouldn't claim from it.
But I still feel bad that I edited out. I turned the volume all the way down in that little clue. I'm like, maybe no one will notice.
Yeah. But we went in there and we hunted, and I told my buddy, I'm like, hey, dude, like, if you sit in the spot, they like transitioning right here. This is like a really good transition. He's like, all right, but it's like kind of your spot. Like, he's very respectful about that. And I was like, dude, like, I got to do a giant loop round, and he's like, I'm like, sit here. Well, that morning I ended up having super wide 8-pointer, and the wind just swirled enough just once, and he didn't like it, and he just kind of backtracked and did a giant loop. Well, my buddy didn't set up in the spot where I told him, and he sat like 100 yards away. He watched that buck go 15 yards from the bait section.
Oh, that stings.
And then we don't have service, so I couldn't warn him, say, hey, dude, there's a buck heading like towards your way. And I met up with him, and he's like, dude, I should have listened to you. That buck walked right by that tree. I said, I told you. He's like, but that's yours. I'm like, dude, like, you should have. I told you to sit there. And then it rained all the next day. We went in the pouring rain, moved the stands for the wind the next day. And we're like, all right, it's going to be on fire. And I'm hunting a community scrape. I actually shot my buck over the year before, and it's there again. And we went in there the next morning, and we dropped off because it wasn't raining anymore. And we got across 2 creeks that are usually like a few feet wide. They're not super deep. You have to get to the bottom of the ridge and walk like 20 yards of this creek. Well, I couldn't even get to the very bottom of this ridge. I'm like, uh-oh. He's like, what? I'm like, look. And all you see is water.
Oh, man.
It went up feet.
No kidding.
So
in a matter of 12 hours?
Yeah, and we were in there midday moving stands. Ooh. And because there's a giant river that's kind of close by, and I think that flooded with everything running off down in this bottom. Yeah. And we tried everything. And excuse me. Our other setups are back at the motel we're staying at. So we're like, what do we do? We're like, our stands are back here, our sticks. So both of our cameras are blown up at home. So we're like, all right, let's go back to the motel. We're grabbing our stuff and just hauling back home to get in there in the evening. And we both had actually really good encounters that evening.
That's
in Michigan.
Hilarious.
I couldn't even get to my stand, and I had one of my shooters pinned down with a doe. And I was 50 yards, and I'm waiting, and the wind swirled, and she busted, and he didn't know what was going on, but I couldn't get a shot at him. And so I went back down there. It was a couple weeks later, and I wore chest waders, and the water was almost to the top of my chest waders.
Oh,
in the 2 little creeks I had to cross, like, and it's cold. I'm like, I'm screwed because I have no cell phone service. My waders fill up. I'm gonna have to crawl out of here and get out of these waders.
Unreal.
But I ended up pulling down both of our sets, packing them out and everything. And I checked SD card when I was in there, and you could actually see the water level was up feet on my trail camera, and then it went down, and boom, they're hitting that scrape again.
Oh.
And we tried going in there and hanging cameras in early September. We couldn't even get in there. Mosquitoes were absolutely like, we had our hoodies like tied tight to our faces, and I'm like, this ain't worth it.
No,
and
I've felt that way before too. I know that feeling when they're in your ear hole.
Oh yeah, and like during our hoodies, they're swarming us so bad, and we ended up getting out of there. But that's a really cool spot that I really like, and that's kind of on the borderline of the hills.
Okay.
It's right by another spot, but it got hit with the EHD. The spot where the actually hills were, it's beautiful in there, but it got hit with the EHD pretty hard. I mean, even where my buddy lives in Southern Ohio, I mean, he got hit pretty good too. So, I mean, hopefully it gets better. I mean, this year I don't think it was as bad as the year before, but I haven't found any EHD bucks. So all the walking I do, I've only found one shed ever in Ohio, and it's when I was scouting. Me and my buddy were kind of scouting a piece, walking a piece, and I ended up just walking right on top of it, and it's a little 2-point side. It's the only shed I've ever found in Ohio.
That's funny.
I've walked up on these little spiked deadheads, but like nothing great. Like my buddy and like his friends, like they walk all the time, and they'll walk up on these absolute giants, and I'm like, I just want to find one like that.
So as somebody who spends a lot of time in other states, and it sounds to me like you're not just spending your time in just hill country or just ag country. When you find yourself on a new piece of property, what is something that Rob needs to find in his heart to know that this is where I want to hunt? What do you look for the most?
I tend to look for tracks, but I like try and find like, okay, where's my access points to the property. And then I'll always try and find like super heavy used trails or like faint trails with like buck tracks in them, because they won't use those highway cow paths that the does take. And I'll look for like scrape lines or rub lines, because when I shot my buck 2 years ago in Ohio, I sat right by the creek and I had a few deer walk by, but I'm like, the wind switched. I'm like, I need to get down. I got down at 9:30, got deeper into the timber, and I'm like, okay, here's an old rub. Okay, here's kind of a scrape. It's not cleared off. Okay, here's another scrape, and then another small rub, and then boom, I found this community scrape. That's how I found that, because I got down late morning, found it set up, and I killed my first Ohio buck at 11:45 coming in that scrape, middle of the day. And it's like, so I always try and just find like, okay, I really like finding those community scrapes, because like late October is what I really like. Yeah. So it's before they get on lockdown and they're absolutely just running rampant, and you can't really like, if you find that community scrape, that's what I really like finding. And that's what I try and find in Michigan, is just like, I found that community scrape on that one piece and I had bucks on it from June on. And then this really wide 9-pointer with this giant kicker off his base ended up breaking the licking branch. So I actually went back in there and used a hair tie and put his branch back on there, but I haven't been back in there to see if it held or not. But
have you ever made a scrape?
Yeah.
On public?
Not on public. Well, I've kind of scuffed up the ground a little bit where I find like, I'll find like kind of one that's like not a community scrape or not blown out, and I'll blow that scrape out. I'll really make it look like, and I'll use my like the backside of my climbing steps where the V bracket is. Yeah. And I'll sit there and scrape it up and everything. And I've actually hung camera, and then boom, there's bucks on it, like right off the bat. Okay. Because they broke the licking branch on the other one. And this one was about 100 yards away from that one. And it was on top of this little knob. I'm like, all right, and the thing is, I could see like fresh pee in it too. So I really scraped it up, and they were on it. That's awesome. I think that evening they came and checked it, because I always, when I like find a spot like that, like if I hang a camera, like I'm in and out. Like I don't want to put much intrusion on there. I don't want my scent everywhere. And like I said, I hang my cameras up high. And actually, that piece, I had the same guy hang a cell camera under 2 of my mock scrapes.
That's what I was getting at, because I want to build a bigger scrape in Illinois, and I want to use some hemp rope, but I don't want a visible thing that somebody's put out. I'm like, man, I don't think I want to put the rope out on public land.
So like what I've done on one of them, I actually there was a tree, but the branch was kind of high, so I actually bent one of the upper branches and zip tied it to the lower branch on an angle, so it's down low enough to make a scrape. Yeah. And it was actually funny. I used this little Moultrie camera, this little SD card. I forget which one, but it's super small. It's like a little tiny block. Okay. I had it hanging up, and I had the perfect hole to that scrape, that mock scrape. And I had a picture of this guy coming in. He found the scrape. He's looking around. Then I had like 40 pictures of him. Then all of a sudden he's putting on gloves. He zip tied another branch to my branch. Then he put scent on, hung a cell camera on it, everything. And he did not want to see my camera.
That's hilarious.
And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. Like, and I let that camera soak for a while, so I didn't know for a while. Yeah. And then when I was walking up, I could actually see his cell camera. I'm like, are you kidding me? So then when I checked my SD card camera, and then I had another camera that was 150 yards away, 150 yards away. Same thing. That same guy, because he blew them all out of there. So I went and hung camera on this one. Same thing. I get a picture, and I had it set on video mode. So all of a sudden he walks by, he's looking at the scrape, keeps walking. Then all of a sudden I got a video of him coming back. And then I got a video of him walking up and taking a picture of it and like marking it on his Onyx or whatever app he uses. And he hung a cell camera like 3 feet off the ground, like 6 feet from the scrape. That's so funny. And that kind of screwed me too, because that was an SD card camera too. And I went in to hunt it. I'm like, okay, I finally got the right wind and went in early. It was the only deer I saw that morning was a nice buck. It was a mainframe, and he has this giant kicker off his main beam on the outside in between his 3 and the end of his main beam. I'm like, all right, I know what that is. And he's walking up. I'm like, he's going to hit that scrape. And I swing my bow over my bridge in my saddle. I just start putting tension on my string, and he just, boom, blows out. And he had no clue I was there. I had really good cover. And I'm just sitting there frozen, and he's just like staring like kind of towards the scrape. I'm like, what can be off? Well, when I got down, I realized there's a cell camera right on my scrape underneath my camera again. And it was the same guy from the previous one. And so that and I've hunted there a few more times a year, and there's nothing. I left cameras up and there's no activity. So I'm hoping this year I'm actually going to go in. I have a bunch of old tree stands.
Yeah.
I'm going to litter them all over that place. I might not sit in that stand, but I'm going to litter because it's way back in and there's not a lot of people coming all the way back there. I'm littering the place with tree stands because when I go scouting, if I see like a bunch of tree stands, I'm moving on.
Me too.
Like, so that's what I'm going to kind of use my advantage. Like, okay,
can we edit this out?
Yeah.
Do I need to edit this out so no one hears your secret?
They just don't know what type of stands I have.
That's a good point. Okay.
But yeah, that's what I'm going to do because every time I'm scouting, like, I'm like, okay, there's stands here. Like, I'll pinpoint, like, there's this one island I wanted to get to that me and a buddy went and walked the other day. And it was a nightmare getting in there because of how mucky and everything. I'm like, there's this one island I want to go check out. We get all the way back in there. There's a tree stand there.
Of course.
And I'm like, yep, we're not the only ones. So it's just trying to get away from the people and the pressure, and it happens. I mean, everyone has an Onyx. Everyone has a Hunt Wise or a Hunt Stand or Spartan Forage.
At least everybody that's like under 50 for sure. There's some older guys that some of the big dogs have them, but there's not a lot
you'll
of
still see the tacks or the ribbon side of the trees. And not gonna lie, when I'm walking the woods and I see those ribbons, I rip them down.
I have before.
Like, it's like, I don't want this place littered with ribbons. Like, I'm sorry, if you can't find your way like half a mile back, like, I don't know what's going on.
There's a problem. There's lots of problems.
But like, going back to the question, like, I try and look at the best buck sign I can, just try and avoid people. I mean, I found one stand that he had this mock scrape set up, like, he's wide open. I don't know if he kills anything out of it, but then he has like the security box with his camera. But the thing is, about 80 yards away, there's two giant community scrapes, and he can't even see them from his stand. It's so thick. And I'm finding these buck tracks and these trails going behind him, and it's like on this little tiny hill that's in between his stand and those scrapes. I'm like, he could have deer walking right by him. Man. And it's like, so I just try to find those spots and that sign. I mean, I really put boots on the ground. And I mean, that's why I pin everything. So I can go back and kind of look of all the sign I found. I'm like, okay, like, this is probably where that buck's bedding, and just kind of look at the terrain. And okay, this is how he's using the terrain. Mm-hmm. So it's just finding that sign, that hot sign. Oh, yeah. I mean, the scrapes are mainly what I'm looking for, because I mean, I love it. Deer hit them all year long. I mean, they don't pound them and scrape them out, but a deer will walk by them and check them. Like, I mean, there was a scrape that I had in Ohio even in beginning of January. I had this 8-pointer walking by it on camera, and there's this small deer. It was a fawn, you could tell, but I think it was a button buck. And all of a sudden, the next picture, him scraping it as this bigger 8-pointer's walking by, him showing his dominance. Like, hey, even though I'm a button buck, like, I'm going to show my dominance. Yeah. And that button buck cleared off that scrape, and it was January.
I'll be damned.
So, I mean, I've seen, and then I had pictures of bucks going up and checking it and stuff. I mean, that's how they communicate. Mm-hmm. So that's like the main thing I look for. I just try and find a lot of scrapes, and then like creek crossings and pinch points and stuff like that. Like, it's just all those above. And I mean, it's just getting out there and finding them.
You're right,
where
man.
No one else is.
You got to get out there. That's it. You got to be out there, right?
Yeah.
That's how you make your own luck.
Yep. And
you're not going to do it from the couch.
Yeah. And it's just getting away from the people, because the thing is, I've just seen so much pressure, and it's just like, I mean, I live in an area that's built up, so there's a lot of pressure. I mean, it's either you're getting way back, or you're hunting right next to the road, which I do have a couple spots that I've hunted. I can see the road. I'm 80 yards from my truck.
Sure.
And I see deer.
Yeah.
And but it's like hit or miss. It's like, I don't know how much pressure has been in there, and it's pounded. That's why sometimes I drive almost 2 hours to go to a public piece, or an hour to go to a public piece, and just trying to get away from people. And that's why I just scout so many different areas, because I got to have options.
Yep.
Be like, okay, this place is getting pounded with people. I'm going to move over to this section that I have and check that. And sometimes it's good. Sometimes, like this year, I mean, I had a lot of good spots that I had ruined by a lot of people. I mean, I'd find garbage in there, or the guy hanging his cameras underneath mine, or it's just people coming in, putting up stands, especially right before gun season, prime time, and they're in there middle of the day hanging tree stands. And I'm like, I had one, I was walking back in, and I see these two guys walking out, and I'm like, how far back did you go? He's like, all the way back. I'm like, all right.
Good to know.
Yep. I know you're. He's like, do you hunt back there? I said, yeah. They're like, well, we didn't see any tree stands. I was like, well, mobile, and I pointed at my stand on my back.
I was just going to ask, man, with as much moving around as you're doing, what are you running for a setup?
I have the Latitude saddle, and then I have a trophy line platform I'm going to switch that up this year. But I run elevated. I have the Rise and the Ultra stand.
Okay.
So Ultra's super, super small.
Yeah.
So I can get in some super, like I hunted a cedar tree. I was 2 sticks high, and this cedar tree was, it was probably only 8 inches in diameter. Like it was small, and I tucked up in the cedars, and I saw deer and stuff, but then I needed to be a little bit more comfortable, especially later in the season. I need something a little taller and a little bit bigger of a platform. When you're hunting late season like I have the last 2 years, I need something that I can sit on and be comfortable.
Yeah.
And so I got the Rise, which is a little bit bigger, taller platform, bigger seat, and I love it. It's like I'm more comfortable in a stand just because I have a bad knee also.
Okay.
Saddle, there's situations for both.
Sure.
I shot my buck in a saddle, but I had it tucked behind the tree because there's so many deer. I'm glad I ran my saddle. And with the saddle, you can shoot 360 degrees around the tree. With a stand, you kind of have that window behind you. You can't, but I just feel like the last couple of years, I've kind of hunted more out of a platform stand, like a hang-on stand. And it sucks carrying that big thing in, but the way they are nowadays,
they're so light.
They're so light and packable, and everything ties in and stuff like that. Where I like it, it's just I'm all mobile. Even when I had my permission piece, I had a couple permanent sets that I hung. Just like if I was running late or getting out of work a little bit early, I can get out there. But it's like I still bounced around. I still hung around. I even had a saddle platform I hid in the weeds at my permission piece, so then I can just grab it and go if I needed to.
Same here, man. We've got that private piece down there, and we've got probably 6 or so permanent sets. That might be light, but anyway, some of them are kill spot. We've got one tree stand that we kill 6-7 deer out of every single year.
There's some of those spots like that I'm
never going to move it.
Yeah, there's no point. Go put new straps on or swap out the stand for a newer stand, but
I mobile hunt that too. Like I mobile hunt that private piece, even though there's 6 or 7 permanent sets. That one skyscraper kills deer. If I want to shoot a doe, I'll go sit skyscraper. Yep. But I bounce around because the deer, there's blowdowns every year. I mobile hunt that property more than I.
Yeah, because you don't know what goes on during the year or during the summer, like when the weather kind of gets harsh and stuff. Like you don't know what tree. Okay, that tree dropped, blocked off those trails, so they have to do a 40-yard loop to 100%. Go around, and that puts you out of the game.
Yep.
So it's always just learning, and
I love it too.
Oh yeah,
I wouldn't have it any other way.
Once I'm grinding out like all season, I'm like kind of just like, man, setting up, taking down. It gets.
Do you film at all?
I've dabbled with it, but not really much.
That's what I start leaving in the truck at the end of the season.
The thing is, I'm like, at the beginning of the season, I'm like, okay, I'm going to film this year. I'm going to film. And I'm like, I'll take it next time. I'll take it next time. And the thing is, it's like when, like, there's been a few times like, okay, I take it. I'll like videotape the wrong deer come in. And I'm like, okay. And I'm like, I'm going to leave it in the truck. And then boom, it happens. Sure. And I'm like, of course. But I've talked to a buddy that he does a lot of filming stuff, and he actually tried using it. He used his phone this year for filming, and he's like, dude, it's way easier. It's way lighter. I don't have to carry a camcorder in my DSLR, because I've filmed a little bit with my DSLR, but then it's like you have to either do the manual focus, and it's just kind of bulkier, and I've tried doing that. The films are crisp, but then I have a little handyman that's a little bit lighter, and it's a little bit easier to maneuver, but it's not as good of a quality as a DSLR. So, but these phones nowadays, they take awesome video. So
absolutely.
And he sent me a few clips of like what he filmed this year. I'm like, that's not a bad idea. He's like, if you're honestly going to just try and film, just use your phone. You got it on you all the time. You're using Onyx. You're like using it. So might as well. So,
and that painted arrow, are you familiar with that?
Yeah. And that's what he uses. He got the painted arrow that goes on the, camera head for his arm and stuff. So that's what he used, and he loves it. I got one of the, when they first came out, I got one of the painted arrow because I think it was one of their very first shows they were at, and I saw him, so I went up and talked to him and stuff, and I run a 10-degree downward angle on my stabilizer. Okay. And he's like, yeah, I'm like, all right, well, I have a question for you. What about the down angle stabilizers? He's like, oh, we didn't really think about that. So then he's like, get a hold of me. So I got a hold of them, and all I did was bend it. So I've tried it, but the one thing about like when you shoot, it vibrates a little bit. So and if you don't hold that bow right there, because I know like when you tournament shooting stuff, my bow falls forward because I run a 15-inch bar on the front of my hunting rig and a 10-inch off the back. So like my bow is like tending to go forward when I shoot. So you got to fall forward and then grab it, and it's like. But using the camera, I mean, everything's going to be stable. I mean, yeah, it's a cool angle. Yeah. I mean, at TAC, I think it was 2 years ago, I like took it out there and he's like, get some videos for me because I talked to him. So I got him some videos of like shooting and stuff. But it's just like being like at the moment of shot, like, yeah, sometimes it's clear, but you get that little bit of vibration and it throws, if you're not gripping that bow, which I don't, I shoot open-handed, obviously, like you're not really getting that perfect picture of or video of seeing where the shot was. So that's what my buddy said. He's like, dude, he's like, it's so easy. You slap your, like, if you have your phone in your hand, like you're playing a game or doing something and you're ready to film, you just press the camera button and throw it on and it, boom, you're ready to roll.
100%.
So, and he's like, and if you got to zoom in or out, you can just take 2 fingers and reach up and do it.
Yeah.
So
I think, so I have a nice camera down there, like a video cam, like a camcorder. But like I said, come November, that thing's worn me out already. It's annoyed the shit out of me. Yep. I'm just going to use my phone, man.
Yeah, it's like a lot of extra weight and everything. Yeah. And I mean, my buddy's done it. I even asked him, like, how do you do it? And he's like, you just have to tell yourself you got to do it. You got to do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think I'm going to order one of those painted arrow ones for the camera arm, and I'm going to try it. I mean, yeah, like you've said, like you get sick of it. And I mean, I don't post every day. I don't post all what I'm doing, but like I'm out scouting all the time. I'm like, and I'm getting out there, but I don't want to post about it. I don't need, everyone doesn't need to know about it. I mean, yeah, my close friends know, but like, yeah, I would like to film so I could have those memories and like I could go back and like check out this hunt from when I shot this buck. I mean, even if I don't get a bunch of B-roll and make videos, at least I could have like a shot on film.
Oh yeah.
So then I could go back and look at it.
For sure. That's just it. Is I made a conscious decision to not take it out there that day. I didn't have a lot of time to hunt that day.
Yep.
I was like, you know what? I'm just going to get there. And sure as shit.
And it's always when it happens, it's when
and I'm okay with it.
When like you're rushing or you forget something, that's always the time it happens. It's never when, okay, I'm getting in there early, I'm going to sit all day. It's always when you like don't wear the right boots or you forget. It's always how it happens. Always. Like, oh, I'm going to not take my camera out today. I'll take it out tomorrow. And then it happens.
So I heard you say something earlier, and I actually have a note in here. And I don't know why I have this note in here, but I do. Jet sled or deer cart?
Deer cart.
Interesting. Explain. You didn't even think about that.
Oh, yeah.
You knew the answer the second it came out of my mouth.
I should go back. When I shot my buck 2 years ago in the snow, I called one of my buddies that I actually met at archer shoot, and he hunts public, and he's a newer hunter. Me and him have become really good friends and stuff, and I called him the night I shot that buck. I said, half his rack busted off. I said, do you have a jet sled? And he's like, yeah, I do. I said, he's like, I'll come out and help you gladly. So he brought a jet sled, and it was like a 1.25 mile drag from where I shot him.
Dang.
And we were walking, and that's when we had that really cold weather come through. It was like -30 real feel. Oh, yeah. It was on the back end of that when I shot that buck. And there was snow drifts that were like a foot deep that we had to go through. And me and him were pouring sweat by the time we got back to the track. And I told him, I was like, dude, I owe you. And he ended up shooting a 10-pointer this year on public. And he hunted in an area where it wasn't a far drag. I'm like, I still owe you like a far drag. And he came out with the buck I shot in public this year. And I mean, he's like, dude, can you stop shooting them way back? I was like, well, I got a deer cart this time because, so I guess if there's snow, like, yeah, a jet sled would come in handy, but like I've used a deer cart. And like, even when I'm like up north, we do like a family deer camp up north.
Nice.
And we deer hunt in the morning and the evening, and we bird hunt during the day, and we camp at a campground. Awesome. And it's me and my dad and my uncle. And then one of my buddies, he's came up for a couple of years. My other buddy, he came up one year or stopped by for a night and stuff and hunted with me the next day. And I had my deer cut up there, and it came in handy, especially them two. I mean, I drug out a doe last past year before, and I didn't have a deer cart, and I had to drag her out like almost a mile. And my dad and my uncle are, I'll carry your stand. I'll carry your bow for you. Like, you can drag that deer out.
Do you think it matters how many people are there? Like, if you were by yourself, do you think your opinion would change on deer cart versus jet sled?
No, honestly, because I would just figure out how to get it out either way.
I mean, yeah, of course. But I just was curious because I have battled internally. We had a jet sled. I sold it, bought a deer cart, and then this year I was like, I wish I would have had a sled.
Because, I mean, it comes in handy. Like, if there's like a lot of logs and stuff, like,
it was the log factor.
A sled will get over it easier because that deer cart, like, the one buck I shot, we had to pick it up over so many logs, and it was like boom, boom, where the jet set would kind of just go up on an angle and come down, and so it's not so harsh on it. But I don't know. I used a deer cart this year, and it was phenomenal.
It's the best $75 I've ever spent. But I really I wish I would have had the sled for him, because it was logs.
The permission property. He was an older gentleman that owned the property, and he hunts, but not really a lot. Yeah. And he's like, "Do you have a deer cart?" And me and a buddy, we each got an e-bike, and we bought a deer cart. We split it. Nice. We were hunting Ohio and stuff, but then you can't use them on public land in Michigan.
What's that? Oh, the bikes.
The e-bikes.
Yeah.
So I'm like, well, that kind of blows. But he's like, well, I got one. You can have it. And this thing is so old school. It's got the fabric with the straps that snap together, holding the fabric on. But this handle's super long on it. The tires are solid rubber.
Oh, yeah.
And the thing's durable.
Amazing.
And it folds up. And I used that a few times. And then when I was up at the deer camp, my uncle and my dad used it. And they're like, this thing's awesome, because we're so used to dragging them out. And I mean, they're getting older and stuff. They're like, we can't drag deer out like we used to.
Not when you don't have to.
Yeah. And I was like, well, I brought the deer cart this year just to make sure. And then I think one of them still have it now that I think about it. Awesome. I think I only have my one for my e-bike, which I used on the buck I shot in Ohio and the one I shot in Michigan. But that deer cart, it comes in handy. But yeah, a jet sled would be a little bit easier. And my one buddy's like, you don't think a jet sled would be easier? Because he came out and helped me. I was like, yeah, with all these logs, it probably would. He's like, well, because we'd be pulling, and he'd grab the back end, pull it up, pick it up over the log and stuff. But it does come in handy. I mean, like my buddy in Southern Ohio, he packs them, and he's like, I'll never drag or anything. He's like, I'll quarter them up, pack them out. He's like, it's way easier. I bought
the whole kit this year. So I know I said I drug him out. It's because I didn't feel confident enough caping him out to not ruin, because I knew I was mounting him.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't trust myself in the dark where I know there's bobcats and coyotes out here. Like, I don't want to be the only person out here in the pitch black trying to cape this massive deer out. Yeah. And then quarter him and walk him a mile and a half. Like, I wasn't mentally prepared to do it. But I had the whole kit to do it. I wasn't mentally there yet.
Yeah, I mean, me hunting out west, I have the meat bags and stuff like that. So then, like, when I cut them up, I mean, if I didn't bring, like, the one buck I shot, I had my game bags and everything. Yeah. So then I corded it up and everything, and then packed out, which I drug them out, but then I corded them up outside of there. And
I really want to do that. Just as an experience. Like, I really want to do it as an experience. Quarter up my animal that I've harvested out on the land and bring him back.
Yeah, I did that actually on a doe that I shot in Michigan. I mean, I quartered up. I mean, yeah, it was nice. I mean, I had to take a couple trips because I was by myself and stuff, and I didn't put them in game bags, so I didn't have the very long walk.
Oh, yeah.
But, like, what I did, I quartered it up, took the back straps, inner loins, and everything, and all the meat, and I actually hung it on branches right around her.
Oh, nice.
And it was right by a creek, so then I just... boom one, boom another. And because I didn't have my backpack with me, so the second trip I grabbed my backpack, threw them in there, and then the rest of the back straps, inner loins and stuff, and I grabbed the 2 quarters and just carried them out. So it's not bad, especially if you process your own deer and stuff. Like out of staters, like we can't cross, like we got to process them unless you want to pay a huge processing fee.
It was outrageous.
Oh yeah,
because I had to go from that to I had to go to work in Iowa.
Yeah,
I couldn't be like driving them around everywhere.
Now, did you say like, hey, I'm leaving like tomorrow, or did you come back and pick it up?
So they caped him out for me while I stood there, and then my next trip out for work was the following week, and he was available. He was ready to pick up. So it just kind of worked out. Yeah, it was still an exorbitant amount of money.
Yeah, I've had buddies that are like, well, I'm leaving in 2 days, and then they have to pay an outrageous amount. They're like, yeah, we can do it, but it's going to cost you this much. And
thankfully I didn't have to do that.
A lot of out-of-staters will be like, all right, I'll pay it because they want to get home.
Sure.
Yeah, so they take advantage of it.
So we've been to Kansas twice. My brother, I've been to Kansas twice. My brother and I went this year, and that's always on my mind. It's like, what if I shoot this on the the last day? What do I do?
Yeah,
you're skinning it yourself.
Yeah, skin it, cape it, debone it, and then throw it in a cooler and get it on ice and bring it home.
Yeah,
because I mean, caping it, that's the one pain stuff. And my taxidermist actually has taught me. I've did 3 deer now. And he's helped me with and stuff, and he lets me mount my own deer there. So I'm doing both my late season bucks. Those I just finished a doe that I shot.
Dude, that's amazing. You're doing your own mounts?
Yeah.
Dude, that's fucking sweet.
And you know, he's a great taxidermist, and he's taught me such little stuff that goes a long ways. And it's like, I look at my other mounts I have, I'm like, okay. But it's an art and stuff. And I mean,
it is.
I still learn stuff every time I go there. He's like, well, this and that, and it's just awesome. And like, I help him out and stuff with his stuff. Like, he's like, hey, I need like covering the eyes so we can paint and everything. So I help him out when I'm there because he lets me, like, I pay him for material and stuff and sending it out for the hide to be tan and stuff like that. But it's just like, there's a new appreciation to it. Like, actually like doing it and stuff and just little tricks he showed me. Like, I'm like, and I got buddies now, they're like, I want you to mount a deer for me. And I've talked to him, he's like, well, I was like, dude, I'll give you like most of the profit. Like, I don't care. Like, you're letting me use your shop and everything and stuff like that. So I'm excited to finally get my $2 from the last 2 years, like up on the wall. And I got it just at a doe, and like, I just finished it actually this past weekend, and I brought it home and stuff. And he's like, makes me want to do a doe now. It's just different. I've always wanted a doe shoulder mount, and I shot this doe opening day of bow season 2 years ago, and not this past season before, and she had like a real thin coat, and then she had these like little dots on her of all the long hair. So she's got these like little like spots of the long hair where it was just starting to come in. So I was like, you know what, I'll mount her. I mean, she looks super skinny. She was a big doe, but she looks so skinny. But you can see all the fine detail and everything. And I don't have any early season mounts on the wall. I mean, I have a lot of shoulder mounts, but they're all like long haired and shaggy because they're all from like late October or November.
Well, what is your plan for this year? Do you have big plans, grand plans, or the same?
I mean, it's kind of go with the flow. I mean, I'm definitely hunting Ohio again.
Okay.
I possibly wanted to go back to Missouri and go hunt some public. And I've talked about hunting Indiana I scouted last year. Yeah. And me and a buddy went down because we were going to hunt it. Well, we ended up not hunting it. I still have cameras down there I have to go get. And I had one cell camera that I was picking up actually some good deer and stuff, but then it ended up dying just like 2 weeks ago. So I'm like, I got to go back down there, but I don't know if I'm going to hunt Indiana because I want to go down there and kind of shed hunt and scout some ground, kind of where the cameras are at. And, but I've talked about doing Wisconsin, but then I had a buddy call me just this past weekend. I think I'm going on a Kentucky turkey camp hunt and stuff. So I'm like, well, if I'm buying my base license for Kentucky, I might as well go down and deer hunt. Yeah. So now Missouri and Wisconsin and Indiana might be getting pushed off, and it might be just Ohio and Kentucky now.
Michigan, Ohio, and Kentucky?
Yep.
Will you always hunt Michigan?
Yeah, I'll always. Yeah. Well, I enjoy it, but it's like, I would love to get a private piece just to hunt and stuff that I can get away from these people. I mean, I'll probably still dabble in public no matter what, because even when I had my permission piece, I still dabbled in public, but I'd save those really good times for my private piece because it was a smaller chunk, so I wouldn't go in there and pressure it. Yeah. But so I think I'm going to this turkey camp, and then I'm probably going to end up hunting Kentucky, which I don't know where I'm going to hunt in Kentucky yet. I'm still going to because I'm going to go down with my buddy and stuff, and we're all over from the place. I think it's a lot of his group of friends. One of them I met before, but I don't know. I think we're going to be hunting southern Kentucky, but it's like I'm going to have to really kind of go down there and scout for deer and stuff. And planning on where the area is, I'm going to have to probably get snake boots because there's copperheads down there. That freaks me out, man. Oh yeah, snakes.
I'm not a snake guy.
We don't deal with them up here. No. So I'm probably going to end up having to get snake boots, but I would love to shoot a full velvet. That's on my bucket list is to shoot a full velvet, and Kentucky's one of the spots to do it. It's just, I'm going to have to go learn a whole new state for deer hunting and stuff. And I mean, it'll just be a new experience, I guess.
Man, that's super awesome. I haven't, just spit. Sorry about that. It didn't quite make it to you, but it's on my table somewhere. I'm not at the velvet stage yet. Like I like watching them in velvet, but I don't have a desire to shoot one in velvet yet. How did you get to that point? Have you always had that desire?
I've always just thought it would be super cool to shoot one because like when I went out to Idaho, I mean, there was still some like I had, it was the very last day of our hunt actually. And I had a giant 4x4 coming up the mountain, and he had velvet hanging off his rack. He just like shed it.
Oh man. And
stuff. And it's just like, I mean, I've seen the roadkill bucks. I pulled over and stuff, and it's just different. Like I don't like desire it, but it would just be awesome to have a full velvet. I wonder
if I saw it, it might change my, because I've never seen it. I mean, I've never like this close seen it.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely feels different. I mean, it's kind of cool. I mean, I found deadheads that actually died in velvet too, and they're so like light and like the racks are like sponges. Like you can see them; they're not solid. Weird, man. But I would just just experience it once, just to shoot a velvet. But the thing is, I know you got to take care of it so fast.
Immediately. Like they sell sprays and stuff, right?
Yeah, and I've talked to my taxidermist, and I forget which kind he said, but there's a few different kinds now that you have to like douse it in it. Like immediately.
Really?
Yeah.
Like saturate it.
Yeah, because the flies will like get into it, and bugs and everything will get into it. Especially like if you don't take care of it quick, I mean, it's just because it's like blood going underneath there and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Crazy.
And especially if it's like but the thing is, I'd be so scared I'd shoot one and then I'd run in a tree and rip it all off, and then it wouldn't be a perfect velvet.
I think I watch videos like that where the guys go finally recover it, and you can see where it has like nicked something.
Yeah, where it hits the ground or the rocks and it peels off, and it's like I just want to experience it once. And I mean, elk's another. It's always been on my bucket list, and like I mean, going out to Colorado and shooting that bull and not finding it. I mean, it was a heartbreaker. I mean, because that was like my number one bucket list is like to shoot an elk with a bow and. Oh, well, it happens, and I mean, it's hunting. It's not called killing it, because if it was called killing, everyone would do it.
Everyone would be doing it. That's true. That's a really good point. Well, I'm excited to see what you can come up with for 2024.
Yeah, we got a few spots that I need to go check out that I think are going to end up producing something pretty good this year.
I'm going to be hunting Ohio this year for my first time ever.
Oh, are you?
So my market, my regional territory it used to be Michigan, Illinois, and Wisconsin. And so I would hunt Michigan, Illinois, and Wisconsin because I was there for work.
Yeah, so you might as well.
So now I don't go there anymore. I have Michigan and Ohio.
Yep.
And only part of Ohio. Well, it could be worse.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna hunt Ohio again, and we'll do Michigan. I'm gonna do Illinois because I really like that. And I'll just have to not parlay it with a work trip. It's just gonna be an extra trip. But
yeah,
just because I got that state land with good access, and there's good deer there, and so I'll hunt Michigan, Illinois, and Ohio this year.
Are you gonna hunt public or private in Ohio?
I go on Base Camp Leasing every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 7:57 p.m.
to try and pick something up.
And I am not fast enough. I would lease a property in Ohio. I totally would for the right price. But it's probably going to be public.
Yeah. I mean, we'll definitely keep in touch. And I mean, I've got a lot of different areas and stuff like that, so I can kind of help you out with that. But
we went down to Hocking Hills as a family.
Beautiful area.
Incredible. And I did find sheds when I went for a hike down there. I just was hiking because I was doing 75 hard at the time. And so I had to do like 2 workouts a day. And my second workout, I would go hiking in some state land. And I found a match set. I was out there like a little 8-point setup, maybe a 7, but still,
it's still a match
okay,
set.
There's deer here. Yeah. It works here too.
Yeah, because that's kind of like the area my buddy's from, but he hunts all over. But that's where he lives, just outside of Hocking Hills.
Yeah.
So he's very familiar with that area and stuff. And
that's some intimidating ass terrain, man.
Oh, it's big. Woo. It's like when you're driving, I forget what road is, 70 or something like that. I forget what highway it is, or 68 or something like that. But you're driving and it's like flat, and all of a sudden you just look ahead and you just see the mountain start. And
it's like you've gone to another world.
Yeah, it's like boom, you hit it, and it's up, down, up, down.
Yeah, incredible. So I'm really excited to hunt Ohio too. But I also have another buddy here in Michigan, Matt, who is the host of the Mobile Hunters Dojo.
Okay,
which is another podcast. He loves to go to Indiana, and he's like, come to Indiana with me. But he also loves to go to Nebraska. And he said, come to Nebraska with me. And I know my wife will leave me if I do that because I've done Kansas 2 years in a row. And I was like, man, I'm not going to do something out west this year. So anyway, I'm excited to follow along on your journey. You're impressive in how much work you put in. And that's something that today's youth, we're not young anymore.
Yeah.
Don't take that the wrong way. I'm 10 years older than you.
I know. I feel old. Trust me. I wake up and I'm like, oh, I'm hurt.
Because you're in construction.
Oh, yeah.
Everything hurts. That's the same here. So today's new hunters want instant gratification.
Oh, yeah. They want to not put in the work, and they just want it to be handed to them.
They want the cell camera to find the deer. They want to waltz on out there, and they want it to walk right to them. And I think the fact that you grind and grind and grind, even with all of the luxuries that we have today, I think the fact that you realize, and it's something that I had to learn the hard way, there's nothing better than boots on the ground and true woodsmanship. And I did not hunt my whole life. I hunted in my very early 20s, took a 13-year break and lived in Florida with my wife, and moved back home and started back in 17. So I had to basically learn everything all over again.
Yeah, it's probably changed a lot since the last time you were here. Yeah.
So different. And I love it. I love how hard it is. I love the challenge. I love learning every time I go in the woods, man. And I just love to listen to people like you tell stories about that.
And that's exact, like you just said, you, like, when you're out there, pick up something new every single time you're in the woods. Like, there's just something that you might miss one time you walk it, but then, like, you learn it another time, and then you can take that and put it in different situations or different properties that you walk. So there's just, like me, like, I listen to a podcast or I watch videos all the time. It's like, I learn stuff and I take it out in the field with me, and like I'll listen to other people like scouting, like how they scout, or like when they're hunting, they pick something up because like they see something, how a deer acts with some, and I'll take that out in the field with me, and then I'm like, okay, I'll use that in this situation. So you always got to learn and just always adapt and just keep grinding, keep focusing forward.
I see hair now in places where I would have otherwise historically walked past it. I noticed the branches that are twisted off, old licking branches. Where 2 years ago, I would have walked right past that. I've been to a couple mobile hunter road shows. I've listened to all those podcasts, and it's like you said, you pick that little nugget, and and figure out how it applies to your scenario, and then put it into practice. And it's gonna work.
And the thing is, like, even like talking to people, I mean, like, everyone's different. Everyone has a different hunting style. Everyone's different, so you can like take some from one person, take some from another, and put it into your hunting situation
100%.
And learn. Like, and that's the thing. Like, everyone learns from everybody, and there's 9 ways to skin a cat. There's 9 ways to access the woods, and there's 9 ways to hunt. Like, you can hunt. You can have all different hunting styles. I mean, you can, like, I got buddies, like, I have a different hunting style than they do.
Sure.
So it's just adapting and learning. I mean, you always
enjoy it.
Yep, exactly.
You gotta love it.
Exactly. You just gotta be wanting to learn and just keep grinding, keep a good mental head on your shoulders, and just, okay, it didn't happen, but you know what? It can happen tomorrow. It can happen 2 days from now. It's just being positive.
And being out there.
Yep, exactly. You can't kill from the couch.
That's right, man. Well, I have sincerely enjoyed this. I think that we could talk. There's things we didn't even talk about in here. We didn't even talk about Michigan DNR. You told me you didn't want to. You told me that was off limits. Just kidding. No, you didn't. But there's a lot of stuff we could have talked about. I'd love to do this again sometime.
Oh, yeah.
You're welcome to come over anytime. I know I mentioned it to you. There's a full gym in the barn. So if you ever want to work out, you're welcome to work out. It's open to the public.
I haven't worked out in about 12 years.
Oh,
but
well, then we can start.
I work out at work every day.
That's right. Good point.
But yeah,
I did have a guy come over. He's like, I carry 3/4 plywood all the time. My hands are very strong. Okay, man.
That's exactly like mine. I'm like, my hands are strong. It's just, I get out of work. I'm like, I just want to relax or go for a walk, be out in the woods every day.
I sit down here all day. I'm an administrative side of construction now, and I hate it. So sedentary. So anyway, I appreciate you coming out to my house, man. I know it's weird. I'm a total stranger.
I feel like you're not even a stranger, though.
Well, I appreciate that.
So I appreciate really you having me.
Yeah, and you're welcome back anytime. I'd like to do it again.
Yeah.
To remind everybody where they can follow along with you.
I'm on Instagram. It's just RM Outdoors 273. But I appreciate you having me out here, and you got a wonderful place out here.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Well, we'll have you back soon.
Awesome. Sounds like a plan.
We'll talk to you later.